So my name is Lisa Maulhardt. I am a EVP at a small, relatively small management consulting firm that's based in San Francisco and New York that's called SYPartners.
Okay.
It's been around for 20 years. And essentially what we do is we help great leaders build great organizations.
Okay.
So we look for leaders who have an ambition to do something great in the world that's also responsible, and then we help them figure out how to turn their culture in that direction and go after it. The third space is a space that I didn't know how to define, but realize that I've been wrangling with my clients over for years. So it's a new territory, a newly defined territory of capabilities and sort of an ethos of that defines an approach that certain people are taking to their life and their world. And it's starting to become a characterization of a type of employee, which makes it interesting to my clients who are trying to figure out how to build the workforce that they need to be able to go after completely unimaginable spaces in the future. And they're starting to see what those competencies are that they need and aren't necessarily finding in the traditional places. And I didn't think of it ever as a thing that could be defined. It was sort of amorphous. But today, and this conference is really helping get some language around it, which is the first step for us all to have a conversation and then figure out what to do and what's the responsibility of the university and of industry to go make this a more kind of valuable and something we can take action on.
Okay.
I think it can. One thing I do think it's hard to find people that have this capability, and so I think we actually have to train for it. We have to figure out a way. And there are people who are going to have these native capabilities, and then the responsibility of all of us is to amplify those and also scale it to figure out how to use those people to identify others like them and unlock it in them. But I do think it can be trained. It can be, I think, once you identify what it is that's valuable and help people see that maybe they have it in them. That's the first step. And then we have to figure out ways to encourage and reward for the behaviors associated with these capabilities to bring them forward in more of people's day-to-day work.
Okay.
So I do believe that it's possible to train for them. I think there are a couple, especially when I think about the list of the competencies, of the third space competencies. John Iwata said it well. The 360-degree thinking is one that actually is quite trainable, but it's not something that most people do naturally. And so teaching someone to take a view of the whole system around them and how it might influence a decision, how it might influence their action, a move they make in a market, is one that I do feel my clients are realizing isn't there. So instead what they're doing is they're putting teams together that each have maybe 60 degrees of view and trying to create 360 out of a team. I actually think you can unlock it in individuals and get closer to 360. And our company works with some multinationals and global companies, IBM being one of them. And I definitely hear different capabilities as more of a struggle in certain countries or regions than others, which is just natural. It's going to come out of just national culture or kind of place culture or whatever it might be. So I don't know that I can say that there's one that is sort of consistent everywhere. But 360 thinking is the one that, just like John said, is the one that I feel like most of the CEOs we work with would say, if I could go buy that, send me to the market and I'll go take as many of those people as you can find.
Okay.
I do think they bring strengths, and I think unfortunately many of us in industry instead see the difference in millennials compared to us and are struggling against that or how to manage that versus unlock and embrace some of the capabilities that they are bringing in maybe more natively. It doesn't mean that millennials have the run of the market on those things either, though. I also think we can't assume that just because this is the market for talent that's coming up into our workforce, into our pipeline, that that's the only place to find it. Like I said, I think you can teach people who maybe are Gen Xers like me or boomers to bring some of this stuff forward. So I worry a little bit that we'll get too caught up in making third space be about millennials.
Right.
I think there's definitely a big overlap,
Right.
but I would tease them apart a little bit to make it, just to make everybody's pursuit of people who have these skills just much more rich.
Right.
The one that I feel has benefited me most and benefited my clients is empathy. And there are people who are naturally empathetic, I think, but there's a different kind of empathy in business that's about being willing to fall in love with something about that person, that company, whatever, that brand, find that thing and build from there. And I have to be able to recognize what it is that makes people go to work every day at a particular company, what it is that makes them follow a particular leader. And then I need to understand what drives that company and that leader. And I think being able to practice my empathy is helpful for me in that respect, because then I can see the business through their eyes, I can see the brand through their eyes, and I can at the same time stay a little bit objective to be able to help them see things maybe that they're just blind to because they live in it every day. So I think empathy is probably the most powerful one for me in my career so far. I do. From what I've seen, I mean, I love a lot of things about it. One of the things I love about it is the transparency of it. So I love that not only are you clustering, different media delivery, people responsible for different types of media delivery around spaces like tables and things in the workspace here, because you're going to get that 360 in a different way when you do that. But I love that then that is transparent to the rest of the building. The fact that information communication needs to be transparent at some level, and this is in a weird way a little microcosm of that, a little hologram of that in how it's set up. I also just love the literal openness of the architecture, that things are bright, that you can see through but also see up. There's kind of a 360 view you're forced to take when you walk into the space, right. And even if that's not, it might be a little bit corny to describe it that way, but I actually think that that's quite powerful. And that some, especially, maybe it's not, I can't really speak to just communications schools, but many universities, I think, want to make you feel special when you're in it by enclosing you a little bit. And there's something really lovely about this openness here, and just the energy. You can feel that's a little hive in there. And then when it's full of students, that's going to radiate and make communication seem as kind of both as sexy and as powerful as it needs to be to attract people to it who are willing to do great work. It's really critical.